Happy Tuesday, everybody. The All Texas Football Tuesday Night Live Stream is live as we are about inside 12 hours out to the transfer portal opening for the spring, which is interesting. We're also a few days out to the Longhorn fan, a couple days or 10 days out to the Longhorn Fan Appreciation Day. Another big scrimmage for the Longhorns coming up this weekend. Steve Sarkisian met the media this week, and Longhorns have added a wide receiver to the transfer portal as we launch on a Tuesday night. NFL draft is in 8 days as well, or 9 days, I should say. As we get you rolling, as we go live tonight, guys, Longhorn baseball, number one team in the country, up 3-0 on UTRGV. Bases are loaded in the second inning, so we'll keep you posted on that. That RGV team, 25-10, so no slouch. They lead the Southland Conference. So far, Longhorns handling business. It's Aaron Hogan, Jeff Howe, Rod Babers, and you. Appreciate your super chats, your questions throughout the hour, plus tonight on a Tuesday night. And as we get you rolling here, guys. And Jeff Howe, I know, by the way, I'm serving as the Matt Butler role of the old Longhorn Blitz podcast here. This will be fun on a Tuesday night.
Feels like it.
If you're going to do the Matt Butler role, you got to have your color-coded charts. You got to look like Steve Spurrier in the heyday with all the
charts and graphs, spreadsheets and everything.
Like Jimbo Fisher trying to juggle all those papers on the spot.
Hey, Jeff, let me start with this, and we'll get to Longhorn football. But baseball 3-0. It was a year ago tomorrow that the Longhorns lost to UTRGV on that Tuesday night game, 17-9. And, walked 11 batters and hit 20 or hit 9, and it was just the ugliest. Kind of felt like the end of the run here for David Pierce. You cover baseball closely. It's now 4-0 Texas. Can you quantify the turnaround to be from that now to number one in the country and a pitching staff with an ERA that's number 2 in the nation?
No, I can't, Ian. I think a lot of what Schloss has done in this staff, and specifically Max Weiner working with the pitching staff, I'm not going to sit here, and I don't think anybody can sit here and say David Pierce is a bad baseball coach, because he's not. He's a good coach, and I think he's got an uphill climb at Rice, but I'm excited to see what he'll do there. But I just think this pitchers, especially, they just needed a different message. We talked about this, guys. We've been in this market long enough, whether it was the end of Mac Brown, Rick Barnes, Shaka Smart. I mean, just go down the list, even at the end of Augie's tenure. I think at some point the message just gets stale, and when the winning isn't coming, at some point guys just need to hear a different message. And Schloss is coming with the right message, with the right mindset. And to hear about how just everybody bought in so seamlessly to what this staff preached. And I think the fact that, doing what they did last year at A&M gave them instant credibility with the players. So it was easy for them to buy in. I think the moves they made in the portal, you not only got guys that were good players, Jared Spencer, Ruger Riojas, and Ethan Mendoza, but you got guys that really fit in culturally with what the staff wanted to do. So if building a roster in college athletics now is all about managing the portal and doing it on the fly and trying to do the best you can to not just collect talent but build a team. Given his track record now, what he did at A&M and what he's doing at Texas across the big 3 sports, I don't know that there's anybody better at doing it than Jim Schlossnagle.
Yeah, and Max Weiner. I mean, the guy, you think of that year to year, Rod, the pitchers last year when they left that game against UTRGV, lost to them for the first time in 48 meetings. 1971 was the last time they lost that game, and they lost it in such ugly fashion with 17 earned runs and all the free passes. It was just a team without confidence, and now they're a 65% first pitch strike pitching staff. They pitch ahead in the count. They're really, really good. And so the message getting through, you're the player, Rod, the coach can know what he wants you to do. Can he get you and build that confidence in you and have you buy into what the message is? It does feel like David Pierce kind of ran into that cycle of different pitching coaches every year. Then he became the pitching coach. We've seen that with offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators. The consistent message and then to be able to reach the player is as important as anything. You're muted, Rod. Something's up. I don't know what that is.
Oh, sorry about that. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, I think one of the other big things, in addition to what you brought up, I thought it was a great point, is that, you got to hire the right people as a coach, as a head coach. All right, that's really what Sark has done. That's, part of his brilliant design. He's just made really good hires. They haven't all been home runs for the most part. They've all been in alignment, and they have been coaches that can execute his vision. And David Pierce did not have that. Tom Herman didn't have that. I mean, when you don't hire the right coaching, you have to break continuity to hire new coaches who have a different methodology and have a different way of teaching and, different belief system. I mean, even Sark said this year, right? He's changed up his spring football kind of structure, not only for the 7 newcomers he's got coming in for the players, but he mentioned also all the new coaches he's got. So I got to actually, kind of train the new coaches on our methodology, on our standard, what's acceptable, the energy level, intensity, all that kind of stuff. And that also is something you got to do every time you bring in a new coach. I think a big part of, David Pierce's failings, no doubt, is something you brought up. It's just the coaching continuity. And that's a big part of sex, hiring the right people. It seems like Schloss has definitely done that. In terms of bringing in the right guys that have an immediate impact in coaching.
Yeah, 100%. And it was Steve Jobs, I believe. He boiled down leadership to a simple, leadership is surrounding you're having a vision, and then surrounding yourself with people with that shared vision, and we're all working towards one common goal. And there aren't mixed messages. There aren't different cooks in the kitchen. There aren't different ideas. There's a shared vision. Here's how we're going to do it. And we all need to buy in on that. And then you remove the people that aren't bought in, and, you surround yourself with the people that share your vision. And that's his definition of leadership. But I think it makes a lot of sense to what you guys just said. Longhorns up 4-0, bases still loaded, second inning over UTRGV. That big series with Auburn this weekend. Longhorns only 5 losses in baseball, 4 of them in the late innings or extra innings, which is crazy. They've really, through 35 games tonight, they've only been beat in a game one time. That was LSU, beat them 8-2. Every other loss has been extra frames, had the lead, all that. So that's pretty impressive that, 34 out of 35 nights they've shown up and put themselves in a position to win the game, only losing one time to LSU. Is a very good ball club, Auburn, this weekend. Jeff?
Hey, yeah, I just want to address something CB mentioned in the chat, and Leo had a comment too. CB says Pierce did not have NIL backing either. Now not that comment by CB, which good word on that, CB. But and Leo said he had NIL, just didn't use it wisely. That's part of it. But that's what we're talking about with roster building, guys. And it's Jerry and I talked about it. We'll have a new edition of On Texas Basketball coming out tomorrow, talking about it with Sean Miller. Roster building is such a huge part of this. It's adding the right pieces, and the NIL money that they had for baseball last year, from what I was told by somebody who would know, for pitching, most of it went to retain LeBaron Johnson and Tanner Witt, and for better or worse. And LBJ didn't have near the year he had the year before, wasn't able to build on his postseason, and Tanner Witt ran into arm trouble again. So it's just one of those deals where you had the funds, just the guys you spent them on, one wasn't physically able to give you anything, and then the other one didn't have a great year. I'll say that, does Schloss have more NIL money? Probably. But again, they were able to retain some guys they needed to retain. They kept Max Ballou and Will Gasparino from going into the portal. Jalen Flores probably should be playing pro baseball right now, but he's not. They were able to get him back. And again, just making smart moves in the portal. And then, hey, part of it's player development too, Rod. We talk about that with Sark all the time, repurposing guys. When you come in, don't just discard those parts. Take inventory of those parts and see if you can use them. Tommy Farmer's one of those guys. The David Pierce staff kind of took a flyer on him late. They really liked him. And lo and behold, this staff comes in and say, hey, this kid can actually play. So now with Max Ballou out, they've had to ask a lot of Tommy Farmer. So again, I just like what Schloss has done. All the right buttons, what you're talking about. NIL, portal, recruiting with Adrian Rodriguez is a big part of that. Player retention, development, it's clicking on all cylinders over at the Dish right now.
I would say another thing you have to do is we're talking, we're comparing more and more the professional to what used to be the amateur, right, level in college sports, especially we talking about football and baseball and basketball, some of the revenue generating sports. One thing you have to find right at the professional level is value. If you're a head coach or a gym, you got to find value, right? You're going to pay top dollar for guys. You're going to spend top draft capital for some guys, right? Those guys better work out. As Jeff just mentioned, you're spending top dollar for a guy, it better work out. Otherwise, on you as a head coach or a GM, that is on you. Like that's just a mistake or a missed calculation, and you got to pay for that. But you also got to find value on the back end, on the bottom end. Right. And that's why, Texas football comparisons are the easiest for me, but I'm sure you can find them in every sport. You got to have a Michael Taft. You got to have a guy that was a walk-on for you, end up becoming a starter for you. Like, that's value. That's an undrafted free agent that became a starter for you. Right? That's value. When you get a 3-star, like who's a 3, Jalen Ford or something like that, it ends up, shining for you and becoming a draftable prospect, that's value. A guy outperforming their contract, because that's what they are now. You must outperform. You must, as a GM now, and that's what Brandon Harris is, and Sark, they got to be looking at like how many of these guys are going to outperform their contracts, because some of these guys are making big bucks and they just need to be performing up to their value. But then you need some guys at the bottom to outperform their value. They're going to renegotiate. Happens. That's what we're talking about these days, right? But you need more and more of those guys. That's the developmental aspect. So it's because you got to be developing that bottom part of the roster, because you never know who's going to be that player that brings you a ton of value that you need these days, because you're paying top dollar for the big dogs, for the big time blue chip guys who are supposed to perform at a high level. But what about the other guys on the roster? They can't just be taking up space. All right. They can't just be wasting a roster spot. And that's how you also become a championship level caliber program these days.
Yeah.
Got it. Where you going to find another value at? Where's your other value? Got to find it.
I'll give you 3 guys, Rod, and go back to the 2021 recruiting class. Hayden Connor, Barron Sorrell, Gunnar Helm. Gunnar Helm was the lowest ranked non-specialist in that signing class. Hayden Connor and Barron Sorrell were in the bottom half of the roster based on industry recruiting ranking. And how many games did those guys combine to play? I mean, the 2 of those guys, Hayden Connor and Barron Sorrell, were 3-year starters.
Yep.
I sure. And you got to think, those guys signed with Tom Herman. Sark takes the job in January. They don't know where they stand. They didn't sign Texas to play with Steve Sarkisian. Not only did those guys stick around, they became multi-year starters and part of the rebuild and part of the turnaround. So, but as much as we give Sark credit for a lot of things, I give him credit for that. Just taking a look. We didn't evaluate these guys. Maybe I wouldn't have recruited these guys again, but these guys signed to Texas. I'm going to do right by them. I'm going to evaluate them, see what we got. And that 2021 recruiting class, I know there are other classes that help Texas get to where it is, but top to bottom, guys, like I said, Gunnar Helm was the lowest ranked.
That's crazy.
Non-specialist in that class. Jatavian Sanders, Xavier Worthy, Maurice Blackwell, Byron Murphy, Jonathan Brooks, Hayden Connor, Juan Davis, Barron Sorrell, and Gunnar Helm. I mean, those guys I just rattled off, those guys are either already or are about to be making money in the National Football League's draft picks.
That's a good point. Yeah, not a lot of wasted scholarships there.
Well, and I think, we can parallel that back to the baseball quickly to wrap that up. Longhorns up 6-0 now, but, coming in as a new staff, they did find value in the Luke Harrison, who a lot of people wouldn't have seen value because he didn't pitch good last year. He's now your Saturday starter. You mentioned getting Max Ballou to return, Jalen Flores to say, Will Gasparino, keeping that core of the guys you inherited, but then evaluating and the value on a Ruger Riojas from UTSA, or, hitting in the portal on a Jared Spencer, who was a 14th round draft pick, and getting him to come to Texas, just finding the right pieces. And Sark has done that. And Rod, on the football side, I'm sure it's the same in baseball. You have to think now that you've got your own guys, right? This year, it's all your own recruits. And a guy like Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons, and these guys are ultra talented, but they've seen the development of those other guys that they watched. So it's like there's no doubting the process, right? So you wonder, now the ceiling goes up even higher because, we saw Gunnar and Hayden and these other guys. I just have to follow the process, and there's no questioning, back to the shared vision, that we know it works, because 11 draft picks a year ago, 13 or 14 coming up this in 2 weeks. I mean, that helps with the coaches saying, we have the way, just follow it.
Yeah, I got to find the actual number from Kirby Smart. But Kirby Smart's got a great breakdown about this, where he talks about the percentage of guys on your team that are all in, that are fully committed, the guys who are like kind of half committed, half not, kind of half-assed it, and then the guys who are like, man, I'm just here, I'm just here collecting checks and eating chicken fried steak, and it's a good life, right? He's like, you got those guys. I will say for Texas, to your point, E, because now you do have all of the evidence to show that the model works. It works for the players. It works for the team, everybody. Now you got complete buy-in. I mean, there shouldn't be a player on that roster, even at the lowest levels, who's not seeing a path for themselves to contribute, to play, and to play for championships and to go to the NFL and fulfill their dream, right? Because you've seen so many examples of it. You've seen, the blue chip guy come in and, the Kelvin Banks of the world come in and start immediately. Xavier Worthy start immediately and then end up getting drafted in the first round, or you will with Kevin Banks. You've seen, the guys who kind of work their way through the program in a blue collar way, like a Jadae Barron, and work, even though he played early, still kind of work his way into being a first round pick there. You've seen the transfers come in, like a Matthew Gold immediately have an impact, AD Mitchell, boom, and then they could make their dreams happen, right? You just seen it, Gunnar Helms of the world, to kind of wait their turn, and all right, you know what? Now it's my turn. Now I can put my skills on display. So there's an example for almost every situation and every path for these young men to be bought in. So I'm with you. I think at this point, Sark don't have to sell the program to these guys anymore. You don't have to sell the vision. I don't have to sell the path. I don't have to sell my methods. I don't have to sell development. None of that. It sells itself. And even more so, the players are the ones who are now preaching it. Sark remarked that he watched the Colin Simmons and the Anthony Hill interview on The Pivot. And he said the thing that made him most proud was the guys were, saying things and very organically and authentically that Sark himself, that these are kind of principles of the team. These are principles of the team, things that the coaches have been echoing, time and time again, preaching it, trying to program it into the guys, psyche and subconscious time and time again. And now organic, it's like when your mom and dad are happy when you start spouting some of their old isms back at them. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, okay, finally got it, young man. Good for you. Good for you. That's what's happening. And Sark said he was really proud of that, because those guys are now not only believing it, it's transforming them. Right, the culture, and turning them into the young men that I'm sure their families, started the process, but Sark can continue the process. So that's why, I'm excited for them, because the BBs are in the box. The BBs are all back in the box right now. Ain't no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think too, Rod. Just to add on to that, what you said is exactly what I was thinking. You can be, Kelvin Banks and come in as a 5-star prospect and be here 3 years, and the process can work for you to get you where you want to be, which is drafted in the first round of the NFL. Or you can be Jalen Ford and Gunnar Helm and be the lowest rated non-specialist in your class and work your tail off and still get to the NFL. But at the end of the day, I think the guy to me, and I think Andrew Makuba for portal guys, because Makuba wasn't a bad player at Clemson. He just needed a reset. And it was like, hey, come back here. You're close to home. Jadae Barron, Michael Taft. It's familiar. Kind of rejuvenate your career here. We'll get you back to being an NFL caliber guy when you leave here. And Makuba, I don't know if you've seen, Rod, but you look at some multi-round mock drafts. Makuba's stock is rising. He's gone from being ever since the combine and the pro day. He's gone from being like maybe like a early day 2 to I think he's going day 3 at some point. Some point in that third round. But to me, the poster child for all this, man, is Christian Jones. If I'm Sark, I just put in a tape of take the Kansas game in 2021 and just highlight Christian Jones. And Christian Jones will tell you how bad that was. Like he owns it. And then go put on some senior tape of Christian Jones. That guy became a first-team all-conference player and was drafted in the National Football League. That guy that looked like he couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time against Kansas 2 years earlier. So that to me, what they did with Christian Jones is as remarkable as anything they've done with any player in the program since they've been here.
Well, I mean, to that point, guys, real quick, making lemons out of lemonade at some level. And now you got these 5-star kids that were, Anthony Hill, #1 recruit. To what you said, Rod, here's Sark from this week at the availability on Tuesday or Monday, talking about Anthony Hill. I think it addresses the exact same points you made of what he's been impressed with. Now he's in year 3. They just let him be an athlete in year 1, and year 2 he got better, and now he's a chance to be one of the best players in the country at his position in his 3rd season. Here's Sark on Anthony Hill.
Well, I think that one thing, Anthony has proven over 2 years is his playmaking ability. He's always, the sack, forced fumbles, the interceptions, the big hits. What I've admired about him this spring is the level of consistency that he's playing at, being where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, the communication. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with Leona too. They're both in that year 3 They have Coach Nansen for a second year in a row now, so that speaking the same language has been helpful. And you can see them communicating with some of the newer faces, a Trey Moore who's kind of jockeying between positions, Brad Spence jockeying between positions, and then Anthony Smith in year 2. So it's a really good group. Obviously, he's a great leader of that room. He does things the right way. I'm really impressed with Anthony, not just who he is on the field, but who he is off the field representing the program. And so it's been helpful. I saw an interview the other night with he and Colin doing an interview, and I was just impressed to hear what I talk about come out of their mouths where it felt very natural that they believe in some of the thoughts that are important to us as a program.
Before we get to a quick message from Rod, can you guys remember a time when the Longhorns were this deep at that linebacker position, this talented with Anthony Hill and all the guys he just mentioned? I mean, they're cross-training Trey Moore now. They're cross-training Brad Spence from Arkansas. I mean, they got Leon Lafau and Anthony Hill and Anthony Smith. I mean, this is a really, really good group.
There was probably a time in the mid 2000s where you would have had a Derek Johnson, Aaron Harris, a young Roderick Muckleroy. Muckleroy was 2005 class. So maybe not. I don't know. It's been a while. Rod, maybe some of those teams you played on,
it might be. You might have to go back that far. Honestly, you might have to go back that far to like Texas City boys. We had them Texas City boys in there.
Group I was thinking about, because you had
D.D. Lewis and
D.D. Lewis, Everett Ross, Tyrone Jones, a freshman Derek Johnson, and a guy Marcus Wilkins. I don't think played a significant defensive snap at Texas and still played in the league because he was so good on special teams. So
that might be it. Yeah, I think you're right. Honestly, I didn't even think about that. That was really deep. That was a deep group of linebackers, man. Because we had the young phenom and Derek Johnson, and then a guy like D.D. Lewis who played 7-8 years in the league, something like that.
Okay.
And then those Texas City boys. So that's a good point. I mean, and I don't think we've ever had a linebacker that like Anthony Hill, who may be in a discussion to be the best linebacker in the country, right? Period. People are saying that. But I think he's the best pass rushing linebacker in the country, like from the off-ball linebacker position. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, his numbers are just freaky. Like when you look at the top edge rushers coming out this year, I mean, their pressure rate is considered elite is like 23%, 24%. That's like considered elite pressure rates. Average pressure rate is about 10% in the league, somewhere around there. Man, Anthony Hill's at over 30% pressure rate in the linebacker position. Guys, we think Colin Simmons is elite. He's at 19% pressure rate. Anthony Hill's at over 30%. Guys, he had 8 sacks last year. He didn't rush the passer 80 times. He didn't have 80 pass rush snaps. He had 70. He had 75 pass rush snaps and ended up with 8 sacks. I'm telling you, that dude's a freak. And if he doesn't have at least 100 pass rushing snaps, but like at the end of this season, I'll be upset. That's how you make sure he's a first round pick. That's the value NFL teams want to go. Whoa, he's the best linebacker in college football, but he's also one of the best pass rushers. Period. In the draft, I'll take him in the first round. I don't give a damn what he runs and all that kind of stuff. That guy's a ball player. That's what they need to do. Same thing they did with Jahdae Barron. To make Jahdae Barron or to turn him into a Thorpe Award winner, first round pick, the narrative had to fit. Most diverse and most versatile defensive back in the country. He proved it. They promoted it, right? Anthony Hill is the best pass rushing linebacker in the country. Off ball, not outside linebacker edge. I'm talking about off ball pass rushing linebacker, which matters. All right. You get him double digit sacks, and then that he proved the narrative, you promote it. He'll win all the awards. He'll get hardware, and you'll turn him into a first-round pick. That's how you do it. And he can do it. I mean, the guy's got a 24% pressure rate his entire career, over his career. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I would hope that they would start moving him around more. And maybe that's why you bring it in and to bring it back home full circle to your point, E. The depth you have at linebacker now, linebacker stabilized. I want to see that dude on the edge on any pass rushing snap, and I want to see him going after the QB or rushing the interior gaps from the off-ball linebacker, twisting stunts, whatever you want to do. But I don't want to see him in coverage very much this season. on passing downs.
Well, I think that goes to why Trey Moore's cross-training too, Rod. Same kind of thing. I mean, Trey Moore, probably not the elite pass rusher at the NFL level just because of his size, his measurables, his quick twitch. But at the same time, if he can show the NFL Trey Moore, I can play Mike linebacker. I can stand in the middle and defend the run and make plays and rush the passer. You're kind of cross-training both guys, but you're putting them in with Brad Spence in there. And I mean, these are really athletic linebackers that should be able to create chaos for a quarterback, disguise coverages, and could be the best group in the country when it gets down to it. But that's the hope with Johnny Nansen in year 2 at the linebackers spot. I want to play another from Sark, talk about value. You guys talk about how you value your roster, how you build your roster. That came to a head this week with the Nico Iamaleava situation at Tennessee. But Rod, go ahead and give him some thoughts on our man Andy Ludicky, who's always a great partner with us on a Tuesday night. We appreciate him so much.
Oh, yes, we do. And very happy to continue our partnership with Andy Ludicky and his team. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like me that has their hands in a lot of different businesses. Well, Andy and his team can help you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. If you've been stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you can make or your schedule in general, you can call Andy and he'll take you through a very detailed process to help you find businesses that will fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, you can do so today, right now, with Andy and his team. Give him a call, 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901. Or you can reach out to him at Andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's Andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So thanks very much to Andy Ludicky and his team for sponsoring our team here at On Texas Football.
No question. Also coming up, apparently Oklahoma's landed a big transfer portal commitment tonight. We'll get you details on that. Our own CJ Vogel with a report on that. Longhorns have added a wide receiver through the transfer portal, which we'll talk about. But I wanted to play this because we're talking about value. And Sark was also asked this week about the Nico situation at Tennessee. And as he said, it's probably predictable this would happen. And with the portal opening on Wednesday, and it's about the value you talked about, Rod.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think it's a difficult one for Nico and his family. It's a difficult one for Coach Heupel and Tennessee and what they're trying to do. Ultimately, we all only have so much money to operate within, and we're all trying to build a team. And that's one of the beautiful things about football. It's the ultimate team sport. And so when no different than if you were in the NFL, sometimes when your hand gets forced and you only have so much money that you can allocate, what do you have to do what's best for the team. And I think Tennessee has made that decision from what I can tell. I haven't talked to Josh, but from what I can tell, and in Nico's camp and in their opinion, they're trying to do what's best for the young man. And so, but this is what we've created, right? We've created this environment that this was going to come to a head at some point. And it was just a matter of which school was it going to happen with first. And so why were we in DC this week? This is a prime example to try to minimize some of these situations that just occurred.
Yeah, the House settlement and the congressional act that could actually put some guardrails in place, and we'll see if that can happen here in the near future. But guys, Nico feels like he kind of overplayed his hand a little bit here because I saw with Clay where even like Tulane is bowed out on the Nico Iamaleava situation. I mean, oh my gosh. And I feel like there's kind of he's become a little bit radioactive, guys, that especially with the House settlement pending and, what he just talked about in D.C., that there's kind of a, hey, y'all, let's tap the brakes on some of this. We're trying to get this stuff pushed through. We don't need a, guy opting out, a quarterback who was in the playoff last year who's going to get the $4 million that he's asking for. Got to be careful with that. And he hadn't been that great. So it's like, did he overplay his hand? And this goes back to Jeff and Rod, the handlers, his dad, his agent, and that kind of stuff too.
Well, it's only a few schools and programs that can afford to pay what his asking price was, right? I mean, that limits you right there. It's only, what are we talking about? Maybe 20-something schools that can kind of afford a $4 million quarterback, whatever it is. That just, maybe. I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm just figure right. It ain't that many. My point is that. And now, as you pointed out, yes, he does have a public relations issue because, it's hard to sell him, right? NIL wise, that's part of what NIL is. Your name, image, and likeness. You're kind of selling that, name, image, and likeness. Different businesses want to promote with your name, image, and likeness, cross promote, that kind of thing. And I don't know, right now if that's something that other business will be interested in, looking at how toxic he is. I think it was mishandled by his people. I got no problem with guys renegotiating, but that's what the free market is. This is the free market. And you do roll the dice with the free market if you decide you want to renegotiate, but to make sure you have the leverage. And he did not have the leverage. So you don't get what you deserve. You get what you can negotiate. He tried to negotiate, and Tennessee decided, nah, you're not worth it. You're not worth that, whatever that price tag you were asking for. So I can't wait to see what the number he settles for, because he's definitely not going to get the price tag that he wants. I'm rooting for the young man. I hope he uses a chip on his shoulder, just goes somewhere and just plays ball. Just goes somewhere and plays ball and has the best season that he's had, because right now everybody's rooting against him. I mean, that's the reality of it. The programs are rooting against him. Maybe the players are rooting for him because it would help kind of boost their, overall. It would kind of boost player stock, if you will, and the market value of players if you're able to negotiate like that, play hardball the way he did. But ultimately, I think he's the biggest loser in this situation. Yeah. He's the biggest loser.
Yeah, they could have played it differently. I think overplaying his hand is a really good way to put it. I think too, I'll give Josh Heupel credit, man, because when this stuff first started to surface, my point was, what's the alternative? You're just going to start over at square one at quarterback? And to his credit, man, Josh Heupel decided, you know what? Yeah, I'm more willing to start over at square one at quarterback and go into the kind of roll the dice and see what's in the spring portal window than deal with, not going to have my quarterback hold my team hostage. Because Rod Sark mentioned this week too. Like, we all, and he said it in much fewer words than I'm going to use, we all like to pretend that, there's just this endless amount of NIL money floating around. It comes to a stop at some point. Like, at some point, the collectives that are signing the checks at some point have to decide. All these people that have money, they didn't get rich by just frivolously spending like drunken sailors, right? With just making it rain. At some point, it's just fiscally irresponsible to spend X amount of dollars for one player and have that player eat up so much of your cap space, for lack of a better term, even if that one player is a quarterback and you think that quarterback has legitimate NFL upside. I credit this is a kind of line in the sand moment for, I think, a lot of guys, and Josh Heupel saying, no, I don't care how good you are. One player's not going to hold this program hostage.
Yeah. And he said as much, and we'll see what Nico lands with. I mean, there were some people who thought he maybe already had a deal lined up somewhere, but that's clearly not the case. Or it's gone away since it got the bad PR came rolling in. If there was something set up, it doesn't feel like it was handled properly. And, there were reports he was threatening to hold out way back into the playoff for a new deal and that kind of stuff. So that whole thing is pretty ugly. But again, we'll keep an eye on that whole situation. Real quick before we get to the portal additions at Oklahoma and obviously at Texas, let me go ahead and tell you about Advanced Pain Care. These guys are great. Now let's run a little clip on Advanced Pain Care. If you guys are out there in pain, you're not getting to do the things you want to do, the weather's as good as it's going to be, get out and exercise and play golf and then hike and bike trails. If pain is keeping you down, Advanced Pain Care is the way to go.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, guys, here's the news from CJ Vogel about an hour ago. OU landing California running back Jaden Ott out of the transfer portal, one of the top running backs available, if not the top running back. So Jaden Ott, of course, they brought in John Mateer, the quarterback from Washington State. So Oklahoma in a kind of a must-win year. Maybe this is the first real significant move by Jim Nagy, their new general manager, who comes in from the Senior Bowl. He's now in charge of their roster with Brett Venables. Jaden Ott out of Cal. I don't know a ton about him, but Seems like, according to those who have seen him out in the Pac-12 or, ACC this year, a really, really good quarterback, or a good running back, I should say.
Yeah, I said Oklahoma, what they're doing offensively makes a lot of sense. This move makes a lot of sense for them too. They were one of the it's one of the worst offenses last season in the history of Oklahoma football. And it was one of the least explosive offenses in the country last year. I mean, they just couldn't get any explosive plays. Adding Ben Arbuckle, who's the OC now from Washington State, and now with Mateer. So that makes, I believe Mateer is going to be in that system. I believe it's going to be his third year in that system, running that system, and they're bringing over from Washington State. So veteran quarterback in the system. Now you got an explosive running back in the backfield. And by the way, Mateer can run. He can move a little bit too. He can run as a dual threat. That always helps boost the running game a little bit. So the Oklahoma offense, it won't be the inept, dog-ish dumpster fire that it was last season. They won't be that. I'm not saying they're going to be, an elite offense or anything, but Venables going to have the defense right. They just can't be a liability like they were last year. Last year, that offense, as we watched, it was horrible. It was terrible. So as long as the offense is just adequate, average, above average, and I think they'll even be even better than that, I think the defense for Oklahoma, it'll always be reasonably strong with Venables.
It was Sean Watson levels of bad, guys. That's how bad OU was last year. It was bad. It's the worst Oklahoma offense I've seen. You probably have to go back to the John Blake years when they were still trying to run the option. Yeah, like it was that bad.
It lost them games. They couldn't move the football.
Yeah. Adding Jay Knott, okay. I mean, at the end of the day, they've still got a lineup of play. They don't have much time to put it all together. It's a new system. I usually give OU more credit than I probably should, but I've seen this. This is a rerun for me, but I've just seen this same thing play out in Austin, Texas way too many times where, hey, we got some new roster addition, got a new offense, new quarterback. This is going to be great. We're going to reinvent the wheel this year. We're going to bring it back. And no, it's a lot easier said than done. So
true.
We'll see. Texas opens the season with Ohio State. I know Michigan lost a lot defensively, but that game is going to tell us a lot about the tone. It's going to set the tone for the season for OU, that Michigan game will.
Yeah, that's week 2. Longhorns have Ohio State in week 1 over Labor Day, and then OU will host Michigan in week 2 with their new look offense. I mean, I think you're spot on there, Jeff. With it does resemble what we saw in Texas, where you're changing coordinators every year. You're just kind of selling the hope idea. You're kind of throwing things at it. But what you don't have is what Bob Stoops had created, and what Lincoln Riley inherited, that established culture, that established vision. And Sark has built it pretty quickly here, so we've seen the difference and how quickly it can turn. But Brett Venables kind of feels like he's in over his head. But John Mateer is a good player. Obviously, Jay Knott coming in from the West Coast, so 2 West Coast players coming in. They got to do something because that schedule they had last year is the same this year, just like everybody. I mean, they got to go to Alabama. They got to bring LSU in. I mean, they got Texas. I mean, it's that schedule where they went, 6-6 last year or 7-5, whatever it ended up being. That's the same schedule. So it's really, really tough for them right now. And if that goes bad, Venables won't last another year. It's surprising he's still there.
Is it weird to y'all how, Jim Nagy's basically running that program at this point? Like it
feels like they hired him above even Brett Venables. And if they fire Venables, they'll keep Nagy.
Yeah. Venables, Nagy's going to fire Venables. It's like at Stanford where Andrew Luck had to fire the head coach. It's like, hold up, has that ever happened in college football where the GM fires? And it's like, no, keep Brett Venables. I think all Longhorn fans like, no, keep him around. But I think you're right, guys. I think this will be at least a second known example of a GM if Venables doesn't win, 9 games, 8-9 games, somewhere around there. It'll be the second example, or at least known example, of a GM in college football firing the head coach. And we've already had now a holdout for the first time. I'm telling you, the landscape is changing fast, guys. It's happening fast.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think at Stanford and at Oklahoma, there's a president and AD bringing in someone to, hey, man, I need to talk to you and tell me what's happening there because it's not working. evaluate the roster. You know ball. What are they doing wrong? How do we fix it? So yeah, it feels like Nagy and Andrew Luck are in for the long haul. And yeah, it's flipped. Whereas Sark at Texas, he's the boss, he's the CEO, and Brandon Harris works for him.
Yeah,
as far as they work in conjunction, but at the same time, we know who the boss is. I'm not sure we know that at Oklahoma right now with the ice and the thin ice that Brett Venables is on. As for Texas guys, how about the addition of the Stanford? Speaking of Stanford and Andrew Luck, when he fired the coach, when he got there as the general manager, that allowed the entire roster to jump in the portal, had 30 days, and the Longhorns have added depth at wide receiver. And I think it's a really good pickup here. I mean, I think this is a guy that he's a freshman last year, had over 600 receiving yards a year ago, 48 catches. The most receiving yards for a Stanford freshman since Richard Sherman, guys. Richard Sherman.
It's crazy.
He started as a wide receiver coming in. But Emmett, I can't remember his last name. Emmett Mosley.
Yeah.
What have you guys seen from him? Looks like a good kind of. I watched some film on him, watched some games. He played all year for Stanford last year. That looks like a young Jordan Whittington to me a little bit in his body type and just the way he plays the game of football.
I like the more film I watch him, the more I like him. He's not, the comparison to Jordan Whittington is interesting because they like him in the screen game. Stanford liked him. They showcased him in the screen game a lot. They would put him even in the backfield. Have him running that kind of that angle route, that Texas route. He'd run that out of the backfield sometimes, and they would, move him around a little bit. So I like it. He works well in the screen game, which is essential if you're going to be a wide receiver in the Sark offense because a lot of wide receiver screens. So he showed some rack and some yak ability. He's not an ass man. But I mean by that ass is the new term for average separation score. And I bet if I broke down his separation from DBs, you don't see a lot of separation, right? Matthew Golden's supposed to be an ass man, right? A lot of separation because he's got speed and he's explosive and he's agile. Yeah. But I don't see, he's not an ass guy, right? He's not that kind of guy. What ends up jumping off the film though, his ability in contested catch situations is phenomenal. I mean, I love his ability to contort his body. Body control is amazing. He's really aggressive and competitive at the catch point. Great just overall body control. So it sounds like he doesn't create a ton of separation. And maybe that's their route tree because Sark will scheme guys open. So you ain't really got to worry about that. But he does have great ability to win, fit that kind of contested situations. And on the sideline, he shows a lot of maturity that some guys, they can expand the boundary with the way they play, right? If they play outside, they can, and they say expand the boundaries like between the numbers and the sideline. Some guys, they create a lot of space in that very small area. He maximizes all that space. Like he still, the quarterback threw a few passes. I want to say it seemed like it was like a yard almost out of bounds or something. And you would see him stretch out, tap the toes, lean, and go grab it. Right? He was great in those situations. So I actually really like his game. I think he's compatible with the Sark offense. Something they also did a lot of that Sark loves to do. They target to motion a lot, and he was the motion guy. They would often target, put him in motion, and then throw it to him. A lot of times in Sark's offenses, those are predetermined reads when you're targeting a guy in motion. And I've talked about targets to motion. I mean, last year Texas complete over 75% of their targets to motion. Over 8 yards per attempt. Usually you're around 10 yards per attempt in targets to motion. It's a little bit of a drop off last year, but it's one of Sark's favorite conceptual signatures. This is a guy that fits that. So he's compatible with the Sark offense in terms of in the screen game and some of those targets to motion. But I think his X-Man ability as a receiver is his contested catch ability. It's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. You know where that helps you, Rod? Two areas, going back to the Jordan Whitting comparison, 2 areas where Jay Witt was really good. Red zone and third down. That's where that can help you. And the types of throws that Arch Manning can make. We talk about that back shoulder throw, those deep comebacks, those that can turn into contested catch situations, which, hey, I know people are thinking, well, you're talking about the red zone fade. No, that needs to be fired into the sun and never ran again in football. I digress. But no, I think I'll agree with something Bobby said earlier this week. And that's that it feels like just watching him and looking at the numbers, I feel like there's another another part of his skill set that this offense can unlock. And I know we talk about the Jordan Whittington. We were talking about Jordan Whittington. He, by the way, Emmett Mosley played about 2/3 of his snaps in the slot. So there's another way you can compare him to Jordan Whittington.
Yep.
I just look at where he's really good, Rod. And again, this goes back to, is Sark going to run, be as RPO heavy with Arch as he was with Quinn? I don't know. But I could see Emmett Mosley, when you expand the skill set, I could see him having a real similar role to the one A.D. Mitchell played and the one Matthew Golden played, where you're the guy that's creating separation on, the slants, those glances and skinny posts and the stuff kind of over the middle between kind of close to the hash marks in RPO situations. I can see him being that kind of guy. Like you said, right? He's not going to maybe create separation naturally. So you're going to have to scheme his separation open, if that makes sense. And the RPO is a good way to do that. So I can see him maybe kind of a hybrid of the two, doing some of the things that Jordan Whittington did, but I think also doing some of the things that Matthew Golden and A.D. Mitchell did. And Rod, we talk about red zone, and maybe this is a conversation probably better for football theory, but we talk about red zone. The more I watch Matthew Golden's draft tape, just on the shows, I'm like, why didn't they use him as a red zone target more? Just because of his catch radius, his hands.
They did early.
Right? Yeah. And then they kind of went away from it.
Yeah, they did. Right. Early on, I remember them doing it a lot, right? Michigan game, they did early on a ton. I don't know why they stopped. That's a great question. I don't even know when, but I remember early on in the season, he was the red zone guy early on in the season. Yeah. I remember we talking about it actually on a few shows. I don't know why they went away from. Maybe teams started playing them differently. Maybe they started.
Yeah, I think he probably guys started getting the expanded coverage on him. Yeah. We're not letting him beat us.
Yeah, I'm taking that.
They didn't have another guy. It was either he or Gunnar Helm in the big moments last year.
They went back to it in the Peach Bowl against Arizona State because they had to. Remember, because some of the fourth quarter and overtime.
Yeah, you're right.
Quinn was dropping. So I don't know. Maybe, like I said, Sark probably thinks a lot about red zone and just the cluster that was last year.
It keeps him up at night. In addition to his new baby, it keeps him up at night. There's no question about that. That's the baby not sleeping in diapers. He's thinking about red zone.
Amias,
diapers, and red zone. Like, what the hell? And, it's because obviously at Texas this year, when you talk about Emmett Mosley, Ryan Wingo is going to be the number one target. He's going to be the go-to guy. He's going to be the guy that demands coverage in his second year. DeAndre Moore. So that's a nice little piece as maybe the third guy, potentially as far as a guy that's already played 12 games of college football at a pretty high level, successful. They got to compete for it. Parker Livingstone's in that conversation, but just a nice piece that you can see how he can fit. Because, Rod, as you said, he doesn't separate like maybe some of the elite receivers, but he's not going to be covered by the top corners. So it doesn't feel like, it doesn't seem like, because it's going to be Ryan Wingo drawing that guy.
Yep. No, it's a good point. And I almost wonder, I'm with you, Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore. Those are your two proven commodities. They're your vets. They're between Parker Livingstone and Emmett Mosley, because Parker Livingstone has the advantages. He's got chemistry with Arch. Sark loves him because Sark talks about Parker Livingstone a ton. He likes him, and he knows the system really well. Emmett Mosley has some skins on the wall because he's already been out there and proven it on the field. So I do, I think between those two, one of those guys is going to be in the circle of trust. I think Parker Livingstone right now has the inside track to be that guy. I almost wonder if both of them could be, and maybe it could be expanded to four guys in that circle of trust for your wide receivers.
Yeah, and the tight ends, they're a thin position without a doubt. Hey, let me tell you about Mark Saunders and Allstate. We're going to talk about we want some football. We know the Fan Fest is coming up in about 10 days or 11 days. A week from Saturday, they'll be out there. Also, the SEC has announced the media days coming up in July. We know the dates and we know who's when. So we'll get into that a little bit, plus some more on the Longhorns and what they're doing in practice. I want to tell you about Mark Saunders, though, and his team at Allstate. If you are 35 years, Mark Saunders has been doing this with Allstate in the Williamson County, Travis County area here in Central Texas. And if you're looking for someone who's going to deliver and keep you in good hands, it's all your stuff. You put it under one policy with Mark and the team. It's houses. If you've got a house and then maybe a second house, you've got ranches, you've got boats, and you've got RVs, you've got kids' cars. I know there one point we had 4 or 5 cars we were dealing with. You want to know you're in good hands with all of that. If you are, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders, 35 years. Plus, you're talking Texas football. He is going to make sure you go to bed at night knowing that you're in good hands with Allstate. 218-8571. That's 218-8571. Make sure you are comfortable with your current policy, or just let them look at yours and make sure you are where you need to be. The rate needs to be where it's at. It's rising in a lot of places. Let Mark and his team at Allstate, with their 35 years of experience, have a good look at what's going on with you to make sure you're covered and you're getting the best value. It's Texas alum Mark Saunders. You will be in good hands at 218-8571. Allstate, you are in good hands. Mark Saunders, thank you very much here on the On Texas Football channel. All right, real quick, we did get the news today because now we can start making some travel plans to Atlanta, Georgia for July. I believe it's 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th, the SEC Media Days. Like normal fans aren't that'll be important when we get there. We'll start making our plans, the SEC, ahead of this. Texas will be the Tuesday. Maybe they're Tuesday. Just it kind of feels like it's very similar to last year. Brian Kelly and LSU will be day one, and there's the note that the SEC and then UT put out. Tuesday, July 15. The day before, July 14th, will be, I think Brian Kelly is there that day with LSU. When Texas is there, just like last year, Georgia's there with Kirby Smart. Hugh Freeze and Auburn will be there that day on a Tuesday. But that always is a signpost moment to the start of the college football season. So we've got spring football wrapping up a week from Saturday, and now we know when the July SEC Media Days will be. We're looking forward to that. That'll be fun to get to that. And there's going to be, guys, you start looking big picture, guys. Everybody's at spring practice. We know the portal is about to open tomorrow, and it's about to get pretty wild. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But, man, the subplots of the SEC, Arch Manning taking the reins at Texas, Garrett Nussmeier back at LSU, DJ Lagway in Florida, and Billy Napier, Lenora Sellers in the group at South Carolina. What's Tennessee going to do for a quarterback now becomes a huge question. Yeah. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer into year 2 at Alabama is massive. Kirby Smart in Georgia. It's just, man, your head spins with conversations that you want to have when you get out there to the Aggies and Mike Elko into year 2. We just talked about Oklahoma and their additions. It's going to be a lot of fun for 4 days in Atlanta, Georgia, coming up in mid-July.
Last year, first time for Texas, I thought Sark hit it out of the park. I thought he was great up there representing Texas. So this year it'll be, I think, less stressful for Texas. I think there'll be fewer questions, but the Arch Mania is probably what's going to me, be the main.
You think Sark takes him?
Huh?
He has
Sark takes Arch?
He has to.
I mean, if he does it, that'll be the big story. The big story will be why you not taking Arch if he doesn't take Arch? So I'm assuming he'll take Arch. And I think other than Tennessee, maybe, and what they're going to do at quarterback and the Nico stuff, I mean, I think this will probably be that'll be the biggest headline, the Arch stories and quotes, and how big the media scrum is going to be. Somebody's got to get a big aerial shot of it.
Oh, wow. Get a drone in there. Get a drone in the convention center.
Yeah. I'm going to see how many people are going to be at that. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild.
That's right. I mean, it has to be there. I mean, you're thinking already it's probably going to be Arch on the offense. It's probably going to be maybe CJ Baxter if he's healthy. You just don't know if he's going to be healthy on the offense. But then defensively, Anthony Hill, Manny Muhammad, Michael Taft probably. I mean, those kind of guys.
I think if you look at the 2 guys we got last week for player availability, Arch and Trey Wisner, and then who I'm thinking we're getting tomorrow, which I don't know that there's a player availability tomorrow. I'm thinking it's going to be Anthony Hill and Michael Taft. I think those will be your 4. Yeah,
that's probably right. Well, it's funny because I, having been there last year, and you were. I mean, it's my takeaway was arrogance meets arrogance. Texas is a very confident program. They were feeling good coming off the Big 12 championship, coming into the SEC. But man, every program was like they don't know what they're walking into. This is the SEC, and they obviously play for the championship, playing the Final Four in year 1. I'll be interested to see with Arch Manning now in tow, not Quinn Ewers. You just wonder. I think Texas earned their place. They earned the respect of the rest of the SEC in year 1 without a doubt. And now they're going to come in as one of the favorites, I would guess, next year, walking in. That's kind of a flip because last year there were so many programs, that thought, we'll show them, we'll take care of that. They're coming into a new animal, and Texas outside of the Georgia games did just fine.
Yeah, pretty much. Georgia. Georgia was a bad matchup for Texas. Turns out that was true. It was just Texas was a really good team. Turns out Georgia the blueprint that Georgia was built with was a bad matchup for Texas. I think that changes with a different quarterback, and obviously a lot of guys leaving for Georgia too. But aside from that, yeah, I'm really interested, to see who Sark brings other than Arch, because I think it'll be Arch and Anthony Hill. Trey Wisner on offense sounds about right. Michael Taft sounds about right too. So those are kind of my 4 guesses for the guys that he ends up bringing with him.
That'll be good.
That Tuesday, I mean, Josh Heupel's going to, I'm sure, still be asked a bunch of Nico questions, and whoever the starting quarterback at Tennessee is at that point. But, I mean, I want to hear, you'll start looking at that Georgia roster, Rod. I know they lose a lot every year, but this may be the year where I don't want to say Georgia's going to take a step back because they've been so freaking good. But, man, if they're in the SEC championship game, it'll be the best coaching job of Kirby Smart's career because of what they lost, what they have to replace, and the impact players they lost. I mean, Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, Smile Mondon, Malachi Starks. I mean, pretty much the heart of their defense is gone. So I just want to get the vibe from Georgia what it is, because maybe it's one of those deals where if we're all saying, oh, Georgia might take a step back, maybe this is one of those years where Kirby's just got a young team, but they're young and really freaking good. I don't know, but that's kind of the, Rod, in your day it was OU. Texas had to climb that mountain. If you want to get to the top, you got to climb that mountain. Georgia's that mountain for this team now. If you want to get to where you want to be, you got to get through Georgia.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think to me, Georgia defensively going to be all right because it's Kirby Smart. He's just that damn good on defense, scheming things up. Look how he threw Quinn Ewers into a blender multiple times last year. He's just that damn good defensively. I worry about Georgia's offense. Well, not worry about it, but I think that's their issue. Like they don't. To me, I think they have many explosive players on offense like they've had over the previous years. I think that's what they got to try to get back to. They need 3 or 4 guys that can be dependable, consistent, explosive players. Last year, they had a couple of explosive players, but they weren't dependable. They had a lot of drops. They had a lot of penalties on offense. Carson Beck was an absolute flustercluck most of the time last season. So if they get back to getting some more explosive players on offense, so they can move the football. I don't know what was it. Gunnar Stockton is his name, the quarterback.
Gunnar, yeah.
Depending on what he turns into, I'm not worried about the defense. Will be all right. That's like Sark and offense. Like we can talk about Sark and offense all day. What's up with the tight ends? What's up with the O line? What's up with this? Sark gonna be all right on offense because that's what Sark does, right? He's an offensive mind. So I worry about the other side of the ball for Kirby Smart.
Yeah,
100%. Let's not forget, guys. Will Muschamp is helping that Georgia defense out in some way, shape, or form. And if my football spirit animal is involved, I will not short defense with Will Muschamp calling any kind of shots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I think what Rod said, though, rings true in my head, is that the off-field issues they're having with drag racing and player issues are showing up on the football field, right? I mean, it's the penalties, it's the drops, it's the it's just they're not, because they just beat you like a boa constrictor for years. They just the defense, and they beat you with consistency and physicality, but you can't do that and make mistakes. You can't do that and drop the ball on third down. You can't do that and have penalties and get against the chains. And that philosophy works if you're disciplined. They don't seem to be real disciplined right now.
Nope.
Because you're right about that. Like, because I'm looking at the list of the 16 coaches, and back in the War Games days, you had the DEFCON this, right? The nuclear DEFCON. There are a ton of coaches that are on going to get fired DEFCON high. Like Ryan Kelly is on DEFCON high, DEFCON 1.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Napier at Florida, DEFCON 1. Brett Venables at Oklahoma. Sam Pittman, Mark Stoops even maybe at Kentucky, because he tried to leave to go to A&M, and it went really bad last year. I mean, he's Brian. Those guys are in gotta win year mode. Whether it's Brian Kelly at LSU with Garrett Nussmeier returning, Billy Napier survived so they keep DJ Lagway and invest in the portal. Brett Venables at Oklahoma, Sam Pittman, Mark Stoops. Those guys seem really playing and coaching for their jobs. And then there's guys, Lane Kiffin kind of underachieved last year. I don't think he's in trouble, but at the same time, he's got to show more, I think, in that spot. Mike Elko at Texas A&M into year 2. There's just so many storylines, and maybe I know when we get there, the Alabama Kalen DeBoer conversation because he's got to show something. Because you can make some excuses on DeBoer that coming in replacing who you replaced, losing a couple of your elite players through the portal in that transition that jumped off to Ohio State and other places. But there's Kalen DeBoer's got to show something that he's ready to get Alabama back in the mix. Let's not forget the SEC. Didn't have a team in the championship game. They didn't back-to-back years. The Big Ten's won the national title. That's a big deal in the Southeastern Conference. And they didn't even have one team, and Texas was the closest in year one. They didn't have a team playing for the championship last year, and that's going to be a huge conversation on top of Arch and the coaches that are on the hot seat.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I still think Kevin DeBoer is a hell of a coach. I think he'll figure some things out. I think he might have went in there first years and following the GOAT. That's just hard. And I think he might have went in there trying to be a little friendly with everybody. Letting some things go in his culture that he wouldn't normally as a coach let slide, but you're letting slide because, hey, I'm following Saban. I don't want to be the a-hole that follows Saban. None of these guys like me anyway. So I think that was a little bit of that going on. I think Kevin DeBoer's a hell of a coach. I think he'll find a way to bounce back. What's helping and hurting all these coaches that you brought about that's on the hot seat is the 12-team playoff. So it's like, if you make it, all right, you just bought yourself some more time. If you don't, there's more pressure. It's like, well, it's 12 damn teams. You got to be. That means you ain't even close to being in a conversation with one of the 12 teams. If you can't get in the conversation now as one of those 12 teams, especially in the SEC and the Big Ten, which you're gonna get 4 spots each most years, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And teams are gonna look. They may look to go elsewhere to find somebody whose vision will lead them to the college football playoff. It used to be like, oh, it's only 4 teams, so hey, you ain't gonna be one of them 4 teams every year. It's like, well, now it's 12 teams.
Got to be one of those. You got the SEC. You got to be in the top 4 if you're one of those programs. I think so, Jeff.
I mean, the reality is, slice it any way you want. SMU came closer to winning a national championship last year than Alabama.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, yeah. That's rough to say, but it's true because SMU was in the playoff. Alabama wasn't. On Bama, though, Rod, I look, my opinion on Kalen DeBoer. I think all things equal, I think he's the best coach in the country. Just if you give me one, I got to hire one guy to start a program. I'm probably taking him. Sark has climbed up the list, no question, but I'm probably still taking Kalen DeBoer. He got Ryan Grubb back, though. Didn't have Ryan Grubb last year. Got him back as his play caller. So we'll see if that changes anything for them on offense. As I look at the rest of the conference, though, I wonder, does Mike Elko need to win more than 8 games in the regular season? Because I'm telling you, man, if he goes 8-4 again, not that it's an indictment of him, but that fan base is going to get sick and tired of being called Texas 8-4. I mean, it's a meme. A&M going 8-4 is a meme now. It's a joke. So I don't know if that would put pressure on Mike Elko, but I feel like it would maybe be in his best interest, Rod, to win 9 or more games.
If this is what will put pressure on Mike Elko. It's already pressure because Sark had gone to the Final Four back-to-back years. So what happens at Texas? If Schloss wins a national title, if Schloss wins a national title and he wins 8 games, the Aggies gonna lose it again, and they're gonna do something drastic and foolish. And I don't blame them because that just screws their psyche up, man. That would just that'd be so traumatizing for them. And so I could see that pressure that does matter, man. It mattered when Johnny Manziel was balling at A&M and A&M was, claiming that they were the best program in the state. It did have an effect on decisions Texas made. You damn right it did. And it should, by the way. When Oklahoma was winning national titles in 2000, you don't think they put pressure on Mack Brown? Mack Brown was sitting pretty. He was thinking, oh, man, I had a Heisman winner. I won 9 games. Hey, man, we're doing pretty damn good here in Texas. And every Texas fan looked at Oklahoma winning a national title in 2000 win. Mack, you better hurry it up. Let's go. I don't care about double-digit win games. I don't care about you winning the whole game. We don't care about that no more. Mack had a stressful start to a really good tenure at Texas. And he was winning games, double-digit games. He was winning 11 games in 2001, 2002. And Mack was sweating. Like, he was on the hot seat because Longhorn fans was like, hey, Oklahoma is balling. You need to pick it up. Bob Stoops is up there playing for championships. And so it has an effect. What your rivals are doing and how they're doing have an effect on the decisions that are made at your place. Ain't no doubt about it.
You remember that Holiday Bowl loss to Washington State at the end of the 03 season. I mean, Texas had 10-2 regular season, beat A&M like they stole something. They're going to the BCS until K-State beats OU in the Big 12 championship game. They go to the Holiday Bowl. They lose. I mean, we can go revisionist history on Mac's tenure, but Rod, you're right. There was pressure on him. There were people, and the people that could make things happen chirping, that weren't thrilled with that Holiday Bowl loss to Washington State, to where you thought for maybe even a split second, like, man, is Mac going to be all right? And 2004 became a joke. You better make some progress.
Well, if you remember right, that's when Carl Reese kind of decided he needed to step aside, and they, made the defensive, and Dick Tomey came in, and Greg Robinson came in, and really brought some physicality to the defense. They got that right, and that really kind of flipped some things, I think. And Vince Young became Vince Young too after that, after the bad body language. And Longhorn fans, we're going way back to the 20 plus years ago. Vince Young has now admitted that it was kind of Steve McNair, the now late Steve McNair, that talked him out of transferring after that game. Yep. Remember his body language on the sidelines, and he was not in a good place. And Aaron McNair, his godfather, kind of talked him out of, hey man, stick with it, you're gonna be okay. And obviously, back-to-back amazing seasons in 04 and 05, and 2 Rose Bowls and a national title came from that. So that's where you're sitting. All right, guys, good stuff. Well, let me tell you, you got to tell me one more time about Andy Ludicky, and then we'll preview what's coming tomorrow when the portal opens, what you guys think will happen, and we'll wrap things up. If you do have a comment or a super chat, let us know. But Rod, tell them one more time about Andy Ludicky.
Yes, sir. Happy to do it. Thanks, E. And thanks to Andy Ludicky and his team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like myself that has their hands in a lot of different businesses. Well, Andy can help you by helping you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your business, fit your time allotment and your financial goals. You want to, expand your portfolio. If you've been stuck in a corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you can make or your schedule in general, call Andy and he'll take you through a process to help you find a business that will fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Why franchise ownership isn't for everyone. If you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, call Andy today at 404-973-9901, or you can reach out to him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So thank you very much to Andy Ludicky and his team for sponsoring our Tuesday night live stream.
There we go. Tuesday night live stream. All right, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Let me ask you about what you think happens tomorrow. Portal opens. Is it chaos? Is it crazy time? What do we think?
Ooh, I think it's going to be for Texas. I still think Texas will be active in certain positions. I still think they're going to try to go after a tight end. These are position that Sark mentioned, right? Tight end, D tackle, and the fact that they went after that Stanford edge rusher, leads me to believe that Texas, if it's an impact player, which Sark also said, he said, hey man, impact players, that's what we're looking for. He said, we're not just going after filling up scholarship numbers. We need impact players. So man, maybe they'll go after another impact player on the edge or something like that, because they went after one earlier. That's a potential. At kicker, I know people have been talking about the kicking competition.
Texas State kicker's in the portal. Texas State kicker in the portal who was all Sun Belt.
That's kicker's one that I would keep an eye on. I don't think running back, like you said, unless Rod, they're just that best available player, just something too good to pass up, where it will be clear upgrade. But I don't think the list is that long. I think it's going to be pretty par for the course. I'm not expecting any surprises from Texas. I think you'll see guys maybe wait a little bit to enter the portal, because it's open for 10 days. So I think you'll see some guys maybe get through spring practice. I'm not expecting any Texas guys to jump in. And I don't think anything would be a surprise, at least not that we're hearing at this point. But I'll say this: I think you could see the guys that jump in the portal nationally, if it's a surprise move. I think a lot of guys are in a hurry. We talked about this a lot. A lot of guys are in a hurry to get their NIL deals on paper before the house settlement gets finalized. Yeah. So that's the thing that's thrown a monkey wrench into this whole deal. Is that thing the minute that thing's finalized, you lost your chance. So I just think there's going to be quite a few people that are looking to, maybe don't overplay your hand like Nico did, but they're looking to get that last little bit of NIL money.
Yeah. Well, to that point, I mean, this week, of course, the judge, Claudia Wilkin, out in Oakland, California, the federal judge in that house settlement, delayed it. She likes the settlement, thinks she'll agree to it, but wanted to see some provisions altered a little bit so that, this Monday they came back with the plaintiffs, which are the NCAA and college athletics, came back with their answers to her questions. And, that thing could settle at any point in the next 10 days for sure, as far as that goes. And then once it does, they're also pushing for federal legislation through the Commerce Committee for codifying that with the new federal bill. So you're right. That's why I wonder if I don't think Texas is going to be crazy, but I think around the country you could see a lot as far as trying to get ahead of that, because if you front load some NIL deals and can get it up front, it avoids that House settlement and whatever codifies from the federal government too. So that's coming in the next few weeks. I don't think there's any doubt. Or next month for sure. All right, good stuff, guys. By next Tuesday, we'll be back. Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
Shout out to the chat real quick, because y'all in the chat kept it lively tonight. And Cotton had some good stuff at the end. But Cotton referenced Leroy Jenkins, and I don't know why, Rod, but because I'm a masochist and I just like doing stuff like this, I need to get the Leroy Jenkins audio and dub it over the 3rd and 17 zero blitz against Joe Burrow, because that was if there's a Texas football Leroy Jenkins moment. That might be it.
No, that's great. And speaking of Cotton, my favorite Cotton actually comment today in the chat for Kirby Smart: the keys to winning is to take away the keys. well done. Well done.
Hey, well, we need to do like Arch and cut that deal with like Waymo and get an Uber, right? I mean, let somebody else drive. Let the robot drive the car. You guys are having a hard time with that. They're at Athens, Georgia, where the Longhorns, of course, will play this year. Also Gainesville and Columbus, and what a year it's going to be for the Longhorns. By the way, Longhorns are on baseball side. We started with the baseball update there in position to win another run rule game right now. They're up 10-0 in the 5th inning. So a chance to run rule UTRGV. I think that'd be their 4th or 5th run rule win that I can remember this year for Texas. I'll have to count those up, but they're up 10-0 so far. Cade Bing, the left-hander's thrown a 2-hitter, and the Texas Bats have been at it the whole game against UTRGV. We told you came in at 25-10. So that's a good ball club. You're beating out of the Southland Conference tonight by 10 runs. They're the number 1 team in the country, with Auburn coming in this weekend, guys. Auburn just swept LSU last weekend, so that'll be a hell of a series through the Easter weekend. Hey, guys, enjoy your Easter. Happy Easter to everybody out there, and we'll do this again next Tuesday. Same crew. Looking forward to it. We'll be through another week at Longhorn practice ahead of the Fan Fest. We'll be a couple days out to the NFL Draft. Obviously, the portal will be a week open, or 6 days, so we'll have a lot to talk about next Tuesday. But obviously, the conversations don't stop here on Texas Football. Tomorrow morning with coffee and football theory with you guys. When does that show drop? The conversation you guys have?
Thursday. New episode of On Texas Basketball coming tomorrow with myself and Jerry, and then CJ and I will be live after the player availability tomorrow.
Boom. Nice.
And we don't know who it is, but you predicted Michael Taft and maybe Anthony Hill tomorrow, because they had offense last week, probably defense.
Calling my shot.
All right.
That's good.
All right, calling the shot. We'll be watching that tomorrow about lunchtime. That'll be some good lunchtime viewing after the availability after tomorrow's practice. All right, guys, great stuff. Happy Easter to you guys and your families, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
All right, thanks, E.
Welcome.